And I would be very surprised, pleasantly surprised, to find many similarities between what I was learning in my physics class, astronomy class, and what Rashi and Ramban were telling me about how the world was created. And that made me proud. I said, the Jewish people are such smart people that they wrote in the Torah 3,000 years ago what my physics professors are just finding out. I didn't know there's God. I didn't know God gave us the Torah. I thought the Jewish people were so smart and they wrote it. And I was already a proud Jew, but now I became even more proud. And I said, you know what? I want to know if Judaism is correct, if Torah is correct. Let me go to the library, the university library, and I'm going to search whatever books I can find on religion, and I'm going to see if they challenge religion. And I searched, I found many books, I studied them, and I compiled many, many questions. And after looking through those challenges, I was again pleasantly surprised to find that all of those questions were against the New Testament. These were philosophical books, science books, history books, and they asked a lot of questions, and all of them were about the New Testament. There were some about the Quran, but mostly about the New Testament. And I said, interesting, nobody found any problems with the Old Testament. And I said, again, it's a sign the Jewish people are so smart. They wrote 3,000 years ago something that cannot be disproved. And I became an even more proud Jew. And while I was in college, very often Christians would come to me and say, why don't you join us? We're going to teach you about God. We're going to pray. You're going to have good life. And I would say, no, I don't do such things. I'm Jewish. And they say, you don't look Jewish. You don't act Jewish. I said, yeah, but Jewish people don't go to church. Okay? And then Muslims, I had Muslim friends, and they would come to me and say, come with us, I'm going to teach you about Quran. Quran says interesting things about science, about the world, and they're true. And I said, no, Jewish people don't do that. And then I started asking myself, I'm chasing the Christians away, I'm chasing the Muslims away, and I'm telling everyone that I don't do such things because I have something better. But what do I have? Who knows if the Torah that the Jewish people wrote 3,000 years ago, if that's correct? Maybe I should explore the Torah, and maybe I should do my research and make a final decision. Is there God or not? Is the Torah correct or not? And I said, you know what? I'm going to devote my summer. I'm going to go to Israel, to yeshiva, and I'm going to ask them all the questions I have, and I'm going to study and challenge them. And if by the end of the summer I find out that there is God, good. And if I find out there is no God, I'm going to become free for the rest of my life. Anyone, any missionary, any Muslim, any Jew who comes to me and offers religion, I'm going to right away say, I already explored it, it's all fake, don't bother me. Leave me alone. And I'm not going to have any concerns, any doubts for the rest of my life. And I started asking, where can I go? And an opportunity came to go to Eish Torah, which I recommend for everyone. In 1996, I went to Eish Torah for 1 month. I went for 1 month and I enjoyed it. For a whole month, I was going to classes, I was studying, arguing, discussing. And after 1 month, I came to the conclusion that I like these people. I don't know if there's God yet, but I like the community, the Jewish community, the religious Jewish community. I like their way of thinking. I like their lifestyle. I like the kinds of families they have. And when I grow up and I have a family, I want to live among them. I don't believe in God still, but I like them. And then I said, you know what? I'm not ready yet. I didn't disprove God, and at the same time, I'm not sure if there is God. So I said, you know what? Let me stay for another month. But in order to stay for another month, I have to get permission from my parents. And we all know Bukharian parents, if they hear that you went to Israel, already they remember their relatives say that if your child goes to Israel, that's it, he's not coming back. And I was worried what my parents are going to say. And plus I have to extend my ticket. I don't know if that's going to work. And I have to speak to the yeshiva, see if they have place for me, if they'll allow me to stay. So I said, all I can do is try. I called my parents and I told them, you know, college is not for another month. It's safe over here. I like it. Is it okay? And to my surprise, they said it's okay. And I spoke to the yeshiva and they said it's okay. And I called Elal and they said it's okay. And I stayed for another month. And by the end of the second month, I said to myself, you know what? Putting all the knowledge together from 2 months of full-time study, I have clarity that there is God. Okay, now I'm going back to college, and what am I supposed to do now? How is my life going to change from the fact that there is God? And I said to myself, you know, I know there is God, but I don't know anything about the Torah yet. I don't know about the mitzvot yet. I don't even know, like someone asked, are the mitzvot from God or it's a later invention? Yes, I know there is God from looking at the history of the Jewish people, from looking at the prophecies in the Torah that happened, from looking at what science says that fits with Torah. But I'm not ready yet to keep anything. But I'm going to go back to America and I'm going to go back to college. How is my life going to be different from my knowledge that there's God? And I said, you know what? Let me at least acknowledge that there is God. How am I going to acknowledge that there is God? I'm going to put a kippah on. And it's one of the biggest decisions for anyone, because you're walking outside and you start noticing. He's looking at me. He's trying to avoid me. What my friends are going to say, what my relatives are going to say, what my parents are going to say. You're making a statement. That's a very difficult choice. But I said I have to do it. If I have clarity that there is God, I have to be honest and I have to acknowledge it. I'm not keeping anything yet, but that I have to acknowledge. And I came back to America with a kippah, a little smaller than this. And I go back to college, and I was dorming, and I, early in the morning, go to the cafeteria. I go to the cafeteria, and I meet a friend of mine, a Jew. At the entrance of the cafeteria, he stops me and he says, "Where are you going?" I say, "I'm going to the cafeteria." And he says, "Don't you know it's not kosher?" And I said, "So what? I don't keep kosher yet." And he says, "You can't go to a non-kosher cafeteria with a kippah." I said, "So what am I supposed to do? I'm hungry." And he says, "Take the kippah off and then go in." I said, "No, I'm not doing this. It's bad enough that I'm eating not kosher. You want me also to disregard God? I should pretend that God doesn't exist? No, I'm going to keep the kippah on. I'm going to acknowledge there is God, and I'm going to go into non-kosher cafeteria." I didn't listen to him, and I went like this. Of course, he was right, halachically, but after the fact, my decision actually was good for me, because it doesn't look good, doesn't feel right to be in a non-kosher cafeteria with a kippah. So I didn't last there for too long. First I said, you know what, I'm not going to eat meat, I'm going to be vegetarian. And then I said, you know what, I don't want to be here. I'm going to cook for myself, shop for myself with my parents' help. And Baruch Hashem, the commitment to wear the kippah kept me out of the non-kosher cafeteria, and set me on the right path. And then slowly, for the next 4 years that I continued in college, I slowly became more and more knowledgeable and more observant. That's basically my history. And then, after I finished college, with again the degree in physics and biology, I decided to take a year off with my parents' permission, and I went to yeshiva in Monsey, or Sameach, and I liked it a lot. And then I stayed for another year, and I got married, and slowly I became a rabbi. So now let me address these questions. So first question, and the last question. Can I postpone marriage, and can I postpone kids? And that fits with the question, how do we know what is good for me? Because to answer this question, can I postpone, that means that I am noticing that I have something better than getting married, and I have something better than having children. So how do I know what's better? Is it good to have a child? Is it good to have a spouse? Or perhaps there are better things in life. If we find that there are better things in life, then of course we have limited time on this earth. We have limited resources, and therefore we should grab all the best things. We should not waste our life on mediocre, on low quality, low cost things. Anything we do in life, we should think, is this the best I can do? Can I do something better with my life? Like people ask, Rabbi, can I play cards on Shabbat? So, on one hand, playing cards is not a melacha, it's not forbidden according to Torah. But at the same time, you ask yourself, now it's Shabbat, it's a holy day, a day that I can connect to God. I have free time from work and I can learn Torah. I can connect with my family, with my friends. I can work on my character and I can improve. Or should I just waste my hour on nothing? And if you look at it this way, then of course you cannot play cards on Shabbat. In fact, you cannot play cards at any point in life unless you are in a prison with a toilet next to you, at which point you are not allowed to think about the Torah, you're not allowed to say blessings, and so what else do you have to do? So you might as well occupy your time. But as long as you have anything better to do with your life, you have to choose the best possible. And I would recommend for everyone to listen to the class in the original by Rabbi Noach Weinberg, 5 Levels of Pleasure, in which he describes this idea that in life we have different qualities of pleasure. And each quality, the higher one, is incomparably greater than the lower one. For example, you can have exchange rate. Things cost money. Some things are more expensive. You have pennies, you have quarters, you have dollars, you have $100 bills, and you have gold coins. But that's quantitative difference. But there are some things that are qualitatively different. For example, steak. That's great pleasure. I advise everyone who can, it's very good, you'll enjoy it. But at the same time, you can have another kind of pleasure, and that is a relationship with a human being. And so if you compare, let's say, eating steak with getting married, and you have a choice. You can either get married and you'll never eat steak in your life, or you'll eat steak every day of your life, but you'll never get married. So what would you rather choose? Who is for steak? Three, four, five? Anyone? among women would choose steak rather than a husband? So we see, for most people, infinite amount of steak is not equal to a relationship, to a wife, to a husband. Infinite amount of steak is not equal to a child. If someone, especially someone who already has a child, and someone tells you, you cannot eat ice cream for the rest of your life if you want to keep this child. Or would you rather have all the ice cream and have all the money in the world, but we're going to kill this child? For most people, they would say, I would rather have my child, and no amount of lower pleasure is equal. So if you study the 5 levels of pleasure, you will be able to choose more wisely. You will be able to select the best for yourself. Leave the low quality pleasure for others. But I will always choose the best for myself. So what is the best? How do we know? So already we know that having children and having a spouse is better than physical pleasure. Physical pleasure, it's better than money. If someone can be rich but without children, he would rather exchange places with someone who is poor but has children. Not everyone, but for most people that is true. So if I live my life as, let's say I'm still a teenager, and I'm thinking for myself, what kind of life I want? I want the best life. But what's best? So for most people, they say the best is to earn a lot of money. And therefore, we will go to college. We will choose a profession that will give us high salary because that is important for us. What is best is prestige, my image in the eyes of people. And therefore, I'm going to pursue a degree that's going to be honorable, a profession that's going to give me kavod. I'm going to pursue money, but this time not because of pleasure, but because of honor. So as a teenager, I might plan my life that I want a life of a lot of money, honor, and pleasure. But if I'm more deep thinker, and I think a step ahead, and I ask myself, at the end of my middle ages, when everyone is going through midlife crisis, I'm gonna be set. And I'm gonna look back at my life and I'm gonna say, did I achieve everything I wanted? And I'm gonna look and I'm gonna say, I have a degree, I have a profession, I have a job, I have money, I have a house, I have a car, even have a nice watch. And I can eat in a restaurant every day of my life. Am I happy? And thinking ahead and looking at the middle-aged people right now, look at your parents' age people, your grandparents, your uncles, aunts, even your teachers and your professors, you look at them and you say, do I have a truly happy person? Do I know anyone who is truly happy? Did anyone become happy in their middle ages or in their old age, having achieved money and honor, and that's it? And hopefully you will then go back to your teenage years and say, you know what? I also have to take care of some other things in my life. I also have to make sure I get married and that my marriage is strong, happy, and long-lasting. How do I do that? Like people ask very important question. How do I know that he or she is the right one, is your soulmate? So that means that I chose for myself a value, that getting married to the right one is good, is important. I want to achieve that. If I have a choice, would I rather have a good profession or a good spouse? Most people would choose a good spouse. But that means that I'm supposed to search for that spouse. I'm supposed to invest in that spouse. I'm supposed to prepare for that spouse more than I'm preparing, investing, and searching for a good job. I'm investing 4 years of college. I'm investing $50,000 to $100,000 into my career just to begin with. Shouldn't I spend 4 years preparing to get married, searching for the right spouse, investing up to $100,000 to find the right one to make myself the best candidate? If, in fact, marriage is more important than my job. And then some people go further and they say, you know what? I see that people are most happy when they are surrounded by kids, by grandkids. And that means that having family, your spouse, and having children and grandchildren, and having good children and grandchildren is a good thing. And it's important in life, and it's important for me. And that means I should be willing to invest resources, money, and time to get good children and good grandchildren. Because that is more important. It's a greater good than money, than career, than fame, than even pleasure. And then you ask yourself, many people come to me and they say, Rabbi, we just got married and we don't want to have kids. Why don't you want to have kids? And they say, because we're in college, because we don't have full-time jobs yet. That means, and I'm not judging, I'm just explaining how people are thinking. That means that people are setting priorities. What is more important for me? Baruch Hashem, I'm getting married, or I got married already. But now the next step is to have children. Should we have children or not? And temporarily, I'm deciding that it's more important for me to have my career, to finish my degree, to earn enough money to have financial security, to have a house into which I will welcome my children. As someone said, I had 2 children and I'm not planning to have any more. Why? Because I can only afford to pay college tuition for 2 kids. I would rather not have kids than to have kids for whom I cannot pay for their college. That's a personal decision. But we have to ask ourselves, what's more important for me? To have a baby and raise the child and enjoy as they grow up, even if I have to tell them, you know what, you'll have to take loans. You know what, you'll have to pay for your own college education when you get a job. I gave you life and I taught you important life skills, and now take care of yourself. Would you rather do that or say, I'm sorry, I cannot provide for your college education and therefore stay dead, never be born? So, unfortunately, people make decisions emotionally. They say, I cannot face my child who I cannot pay for their tuition. But think a step ahead. What about giving birth to that child? What about raising that child? What about taking care of that child? What about playing with that child? Don't make your decisions emotionally. Don't make your decisions according to, like someone said, following the crowd, following the masses. Make the decision for yourself. Be the leader for yourself, for your own life. Choose what's good for you. Don't listen to what other people are telling you. We want you to become a doctor. We want you to earn this much money. We want you to drive this car. We want you to wear this watch. Whoever it is, whether it's your parents, your friends, the billboards, magazines, whatever source it is that's feeding the instructions to you, you should be your own leader, your own decision maker. You are the one who is deciding what is the best for me. Do I want life like everyone else, to look good in people's eyes, or do I want life that's good for me? Another example relating to this, when a boy meets a girl, what should he be thinking about? How to choose if she's for him or not? Some people, they see a girl and they say, let me think. What will my friends say? Will I look good next to her when I go to a party? What will my parents say? And now you think to yourself, is that a good way to choose a spouse? Is she good for other people? Or is it better to look at the person in front of you and say, is she good for me? Will we connect to each other? Will she be a good mother and a good wife? And I don't care what my parents are going to say about her degree, her height, her age, her appearance, her parents, because I see that she's good for me. I'm not choosing a wife for my friends, I'm choosing a wife for me. And the same for a girl. A girl sees a guy and she says, what will my girlfriends say about him? Will they be jealous that he is tall, that he is big, that he drives this car? No, you're choosing a spouse for yourself, not for your girlfriends. Chas v'shalom. So, choose the best for yourself. Choose what is going to provide you with the greatest accomplishment. And the greatest accomplishment is going to provide you with the greatest pleasure. If you have the greatest spouse, greatest children, you are going to have greatest pleasure in life. Now, that's how you know if this is your soulmate. Someone once asked, is there such a thing as your soulmate? Yeah, and someone asked, how many soulmates do you have? So depending which religion you come from, it may be between 1 and 72. But we come from a religion that we say you only have one soulmate. Why? Because you have one soul, you have one neshama. And that means you need someone who is going to complete your neshama. How do you know? And the answer is, Hashem guides you. All you need to do is say, God, please guide me to the right one. I'm sure she is somewhere in the world. I'm sure he is somewhere in the world. Please let us meet. Just like we know from the Torah that when Eliezer went to look for a wife for Yitzhak, what did he say? He said a prayer. He said, Hashem, please guide me to the right one. Yes, he made a test to check her character traits, but at the end of the day, he acknowledged afterwards that Hashem, you are the one who brought me to the right girl. And so we should not be afraid. Of course, that's a major decision. It's a scary decision. A decision that will affect my life for the good or bad. Am I choosing the right one? But that Rabbi Avigdor Miller, who was asked this question, is there such a thing as your soulmate? He said no. Especially in our times. Why? Because you can get the spouse designed by God for you, the perfect one. But if you mistreat them, if you have anger issues, if you cannot control your desires, what's going to happen? It's not going to help you that you found the right one, that God was merciful to you and He gave you your soulmate. Very soon after, you're going to separate from your soulmate, God forbid. And the opposite is true. You might marry someone who is from a different branch. But if you treat them properly, you work on your character, you improve yourself and perfect yourself, what's going to happen? You lived a perfect life and you helped them to live a perfect life. You go to heaven and you both get Gan Eden. So what if you were not married to your soulmate? Nothing changes for you. It's only an idea. Practically, doesn't make a difference. In the future, doesn't make a difference. Souls, neshamot, they're not like bodies. If I am next to one friend in one location, I cannot be with another friend in a different location. If I marry one spouse, I cannot marry a different spouse. But in the spiritual world, there are no boundaries. And neshama is connected to the right one right away. If you raised your neshama to the highest level you could, and your soulmate, whether she's married to you or not, she raised her soul to the highest level, good. When you go to Gan Eden, your souls will connect. But it may be that you failed, God forbid, and your soulmate was great. Whether you were married on earth or not doesn't matter, because your levels are so different. You cannot be in the same place in heaven. So even if two people who are soulmates find each other and they get married, it does not guarantee that they're going to be in the same place in Gan Eden. And the opposite. Two people might not marry each other, but because they are soulmates and they put in the effort to be the best they can, when they go to Gan Eden, they will be on the same level with their soulmate. So practically, we should forget about the idea of soulmate and choose the best one for you to accomplish your mission in life. And that means before you search for a husband or for a wife, you have to search for your personal mission. Why did I come here? I have to discover myself, and I have to discover my relationship with God. And after I discover myself and I discover my relationship with God, now I can bring in one more person into the relationship, the triangle. Myself, God, and my spouse. So coming back to the question, should we postpone, are we allowed to postpone marriage? The answer is, if you're not ready for marriage, then you should postpone your marriage. Because we don't want you to get married to a wrong one, based on wrong assumptions and desires, and then, God forbid, to have a divorce, chas v'shalom, or to live with them but not fulfill your purpose in life because you interfere with each other. So sometimes, yes, you have to postpone your marriage. How do you know if you're ready for marriage? You have to know if you're mature. You have to know if you're mentally stable, if you're physically healthy, a little bit if you're financially capable of supporting your family. If you feel that you are emotionally, mentally, and physically ready, and you know who you are and you know what you want, then it's not recommended to postpone your marriage, because think about it. The earlier you start searching, the more choices you have. With every year, few more girls and few more guys are off the market. They're taken already. So it's like you come to a party. People don't say, you know what, I'm going to postpone going to the shmorg. Let me take my time. I'm going to explore the whole way. I'm going to go to the roof. I'm going to stay in the parking lot. And then maybe a little bit later I'll go to eat. No, people rush. Why? Because they want the best sushi and they want the best meats and cuts. The same is with marriage. The more we postpone, the less choices we have. So you should start searching as soon as you're ready. Everyone has their own path. We don't know. Some people have to meet 5 people before they find the right one. Some people 10, some people 20. But the earlier you start, the better it is, the more choices you have. Second reason not to postpone marriage, and for the same reason not to postpone children, is because if marriage is good and if children are good, you want to enjoy them more. You want to achieve the good in your life sooner rather than later, and you want to keep it longer. So if you have a choice, I can have children when I'm young and enjoy them and they'll enjoy me, or I can have kids when I'm 60. I'll enjoy them for a couple years and then I'll say goodbye to them and they'll say goodbye to me. Of course, the younger we have children, the more we will enjoy them. We will see their marriage, we will see their children's marriage. The older you start, the less enjoyment you're going to have from your children. And more than that, in order to be a good parent, you have to have energy. Children take a lot of energy. And the older you get, the less energy you have. And the less you can take care of your kids, the less healthy you might be. Unfortunately, I have a student whose father was 53 when he was born. And when he was 20 years old, his father died. And it wasn't a good feeling. That he said, I never had a father. I always had an old man next to me. So, the younger we are, the more we will enjoy our spouse, more years, more younger years. The younger we are, the more we will enjoy our kids. Now, people say, Rabbi, I'm not planning to wait 10 years or 20 years to have kids or to get married. I just want to wait 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I'm still going to be young. So, as we said, every year you wait, the less choices you have for marriage. And not only that, you don't know what was preordained for you. And that means that a certain soul is supposed to come into the world. And if I say, you know what, I'm not ready to have a child. Let me have a child in 6 months from now. Who knows, maybe that time is not right for that soul to come down. And maybe you missed the chance, chas v'shalom. Maybe you'll have to wait another year or 2 or 3. And maybe Hashem is going to substitute and say, you know what? You're getting married, you're getting pregnant, I have to send a soul, but it's not the right time, so I'll send any random soul that I find laying around. But if you want the best, the choicest souls to become your children, then you have to be ready and willing to bring the neshama down as soon as possible. If Hashem will give you children, good. If not, then you'll have your postponement. So, I'm always reminded of the story of a king, Chizkiyahu, who was a great king, one of the best, comparable to David HaMelech. And one time a prophet came to him and said, Dear king, prepare, you're going to die now. And the king said, what do you mean? I'm the best king the Jewish people have known. Why should I die now? And the prophet said, because you never got married and because you don't have children. And the king said, but do you know why I didn't get married and I didn't have children? It's because through prophecy I foresaw that I'm going to have a bad child. My child is going to be evil. And therefore I made a decision for the sake of the Jewish nation that I'm going to self-sacrifice and I'm not going to get married and I'm not going to have a child. He had a very good reason to postpone marriage and to postpone having kids, because he knew for sure He received the prophecy from God that his son is going to be evil. And the prophet said, for that decision, you are going to die now. And the king said, I don't want to die now. I see that it was a wrong decision if God is punishing me. And he said, you know what? I'm willing to get married. And he said to the prophet, you have a daughter. Maybe I can marry her so that our children will have the greatest parents, the greatest king, and the greatest prophet. Perhaps that will change their mazal. And the prophet said, you know what? Let's try. And he gave him his daughter, and they got married, and they had a child. And that child turned out to be evil. One of the worst kings that we ever had. But the point of the story is that even if you have a valid reason to postpone having children, it's such an important thing that God was willing to kill the greatest king of the Jewish nation. The king that educated the entire nation Torah, the king that protected, the king that raised the level of the Jewish people. Just because one king, one person decided not to have one child, and an evil child at that, you are killing him and you are depriving the Jewish people of a great leader? And the answer is yes, because one child is so precious. As it says, saving one person is like saving the entire world. Giving life to one person is like giving life to an entire world. So, realizing that certain things are good in life, and some of these things are marriage and children, it will help us to put them in the right priority order and to choose. Where should I invest more of my effort? What should I do first? What should I do next? So when my parents said, why do you want to go to yeshiva now? Why don't you get a job first, work for a few years, and then go to yeshiva? I told them that the knowledge that I'm going to get from yeshiva, I need early in life. I need this knowledge to understand myself, to be a better human being, to get married, not to make mistakes. The money that I'm going to get from my job, I don't need now. I'm fine without the money. I live at home. I don't need money. Why should I do something that I don't need and delay something that I do need? And so I made the decision to go to yeshiva first after college, or someone who is not yet in college, I would recommend go to yeshiva after high school. Someone who is in the middle of college, go to yeshiva during summer vacation, winter vacation, spring vacation. Take a year off, because you need the knowledge of Torah that will help you to know yourself, that will help you to understand your purpose in life, and help you to make right decisions. The earlier you know it, the better your life will be. The less mistakes you will make, better your choices are going to be. And so in deciding what should I do, we have to first identify what is good, what is better, what is best, and then we have to identify what I need earlier in life and what I can delay. Now, let's go to some other questions that will switch the topic. How do we know that Saturday is Shabbat? Maybe Christians are right. They chose Sunday as their Shabbat. Or maybe Muslims are right. They chose Friday as their Shabbat. How do we know that the Jewish choice is correct? So, simple answer is that you look at the world and you realize that surprisingly, the entire world, maybe with exception of some strange countries, the entire world runs on a 7-day week, right? Whether you are in America, in Russia, South America, Africa, Australia, wherever you are, you have 7-day week. That means that there is something special about 7 days and Shabbat. And you also look around the world and you see that everyone seems to agree that Monday is a Monday, that Tuesday is a Tuesday, and Wednesday is a Wednesday. And everyone seems to agree that the weekend is Saturday and Sunday. Saturday because it's the Jewish Shabbat, and Sunday is because for the last 2,000 years it was the Christian Shabbat. Why does everyone agree that the week has 7 days and that the Saturday is a weekend? In America, Saturday is the 7th day. In Russia, I remember Saturday was the 6th day because they wanted Sunday to be the 7th day. So just from the fact that the entire world accepts that you have a work week with the weekend, and Shabbat fits perfectly in the weekend, day of rest, and that the names of days correspond to the Jewish names, makes you confident that the Shabbat that we observe is the right Shabbat. And practically, the Jewish people have observed Shabbat from the first Shabbat after they came out of Egypt until now, without interruption. Somewhere in the world, Jewish people keep Shabbat. Even if some countries became secular and stopped keeping Shabbat, like for 70 years of Russia, but somewhere in the world there are Jewish people for the last 3,500 years that keep Shabbat. And so we have a tradition that our calendar is correct, especially the calendar of weekdays and Shabbat. Okay. Now, another question. About, can a woman wear clothing that is designed for a man? And can a man wear clothing that is designed for a woman? And living in our society where we have clothing that is designed for both at the same time, or we have funny people that dress according to the other gender, and now things are not so clear-cut. Do these laws still apply? So, this is one of the mitzvot in the Torah. This is not a rabbinic law, it's a Torah law that a man is not allowed to wear women's clothing, and a woman is not allowed to wear men's clothing. And the Torah doesn't give us a clear reason for it, just hints that it's for reasons of preventing forbidden sexual relations. And the commentators explain that it's actually for the protection of women. Because if a man dresses up like a woman and pretends that he's a woman, this is again written 3,000 years ago. If a man pretends he's a woman and goes to a place that is only for women, it puts women at risk. And therefore the Torah says a man is not allowed to wear women's clothing, not to take advantage of women. Similarly, a woman is not supposed to wear men's clothing because, what is the reason she's doing it? It's to go among men, to come closer to the masses of men, and to potentially commit a forbidden act. And therefore the Torah says it's forbidden for a woman to pretend she is a man, and it's forbidden for a man to pretend that he is a woman. That's simply. Okay. And that applies to us as well. Not only that, in our days, we should probably take it more seriously, because we see how much harm is caused by people going and connecting with the opposite gender outside of marriage. You have a question? Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. A woman in the army, a woman that is, let's say, a nurse, a doctor that might have to wear a uniform, a woman who needs to carry weapon. Weapon is also considered a man's utensil. A woman is not supposed to. It's not a woman's job to fight for her country. If necessary, that's what she'll have to do, but it's not the role of a woman. A man is the one that's supposed to protect his family, that's supposed to protect his country. In extreme situations, yes, but under normal circumstances, especially in times of peace, it is considered wrong for a woman to be in the army. That also connects to what we said, that every person has to know what is the best for them. And a woman knows that for her, it's not good to be in the army. She is wasting, let's say, 3 years of most precious time of her life. The time that she might get married, the time that she might have her first child or first 2 children. And to do something that there are other people who can do the job better. A man, whatever you say, will be a better soldier than a woman. He can carry more, he can run further, he can fight better than a woman. So why switch roles and do something that you're less equipped for and abandon your own role? That's why we are against women being in the army. Not only she's wasting her potential for those years, but also she's putting herself at risk of being abused, raped, and other things. So nowadays, because the boundaries between men and women are so blurred and so many people become harmed by not only real improper relations, but also they being accused of improper relations. It's becoming very popular if you want to get money or you want to rise in your ranks to blame that someone sexually abused you. And then you get money, you get publicity, and potentially they will raise you in your rank. And you might sink your opponent. So because of that, many people started accepting additional fences for themselves. For example, I know men who say, I will never meet with a woman in a private room alone. There should always be someone nearby watching. There should always be a camera. Why? Because you never know what she will say after that meeting for the rest of my life. Next 10 years, 20 years, she might remember when it's convenient for her, when I become a big shot, and she might say, and I will not be able to defend myself because there was no one in the room. And so, for your own safety and for the safety of your neshama, your soul, it's good to stay away from the opposite gender until you're ready for marriage. And then you get married. And I know many people, even though it's not a Jewish custom for men to wear a wedding band, but many Jewish women do wear a wedding band as protection. Why? Because they say it's too risky to be in the office with other girls around. I have to have a ring. This way, they don't flirt with me. This way, they don't ask me out. And how much more dangerous it is for a woman. Even if they know that she's married, they still ask her out. That's the society we live in. And therefore, the more fences, the more protection we put for ourselves, the better we will protect those things that are important for us, that are good for us, our marriage and our children. And if we think how many marriages were destroyed because of something that started at work, how many children are now with a single parent because of something that happened to their father or to their mother at their job site. Therefore, the clothing for a woman and clothing for a man should be distinct. The hairstyle, the facial hair, the way of talking, the language that we use. A woman should be feminine, a man should be masculine, because that is good for them and that protects them in this world, protects them in the next world. Now, just quickly, I'm going to go through the other questions. What part of Torah is divine, and do we know that Torah is divine? So, it says that if someone wants to not believe there is God or Torah, he can find an excuse. The greatest minds looked into it and they studied it, and some of them were convinced that Torah is true, the Torah is divine, and some of them chose that the Torah is not divine. Now, what choice you are going to make is up to you. That means that if a person is searching for truth and he cleans his character and he doesn't have a bias, I want to choose that there is no God because that's the argument I had with my friend and I want to win my argument, and therefore I don't want to give in and admit there's God because he's going to make fun of me and he's going to say, oh, look at you, you said there is no God and now you're keeping Shabbat, and they're going to make fun of me. I'm not going to let them make fun of me, and for the rest of my life I'm going to be a secular to prove to them that I'm still strong. So such an attitude, of course, is foolish. Why would you destroy your life and your olam haba just to win an argument? Or some people say, I'm a professor. It will look bad on me getting promotion or grants. It's not going to look good when we have a professional party and other professors are presenting and I'm walking around with a kippah. I'm going to be embarrassed. They're going to make fun of me. And therefore, you know what? I'm denying God. So a person has to be careful that when he approaches this topic, is there God or not? Is Torah true or not? He should first remove all fears from him. Fear of what people might say, gava, haughtiness, desire. Yes, if I choose this God, then I cannot eat at McDonald's anymore. You have to remove the fears, you have to remove the desires, you have to try to remove bad character traits, become pure, good, and then it will become self-evident. Then it will be very easy. In my experience, I noticed that people with good character traits, which means good midot, become religious more easily. People that are naturally angry, stingy, jealous, selfish, it's hard for them to become religious. Whether for a simple reason, because in order to become religious, you have to be humble, you have to follow the rules, you have to search for truth, you have to control your emotions, and you have to follow the dictates of God. And someone with bad character traits, he doesn't want a master, he doesn't want someone to tell him. Or, as I said before, that in order to see the truth, you have to remove bias. You have to remove fear, you have to remove the distraction of your own character. And the person who did not improve his character, who did not perfect his character, is going to find it very hard to be able to see the truth. However, if you approach it with clarity and with an open mind, you will easily see that God must exist, and whoever is interested, we can go through it slowly together with all the sources and all the points, arguments. And it's easy to see that the Torah is divine, especially with the prophecies that we have the benefit of verifying. If we lived, let's say, 2,000 years ago, it would be very difficult to prove that the Torah is divine based on history, because history didn't happen yet. But now that we live 2,000 years later, or 3,500 years since the Torah was given, we have the benefit of history. 3,500 years of history of the Jewish people. And we can analyze what happened to us in the first century after the Torah was given. Was it predicted? 5 centuries after, 1,000 years after the Torah was given, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, up to our day, and day-to-day events that are happening now in the news. Do we see these predictions, these prophecies coming true? And if yes, we ask ourselves, is there a chance that this could have been by chance? That someone just happened to guess correctly each and every one of the prophecies of the Torah. So that's one way. Another way to prove that the Torah is divine and that there is God is through science. And we can do that as well, whoever has time and desire. And you can see God through your own body. You look at yourself, if you study biology, anatomy, physiology, molecular biology, you will see that our own body and all biological structures are so complicated that they say it's easier to turn a bacteria into a human being than to create one protein. That's how complicated it is. And to turn a bacteria into a human being under normal circumstances without divine intervention is impossible. So whoever wants, the information is there. You can study it with a rabbi, or you can contact me, or you can go to a yeshiva or a seminary. You can have clarity for yourself that there is God. You can have clarity for yourself that the Torah is divine. Once you do, and once you start keeping the mitzvot, I would say that it's very important to then differentiate between what is divine and what is rabbinic. Because when we observe mitzvot, we have to know what we're doing. Am I now doing a commandment of God, or I'm just doing a decree that the rabbis put upon us? And why did the rabbis put the decree? Is it in order to prevent me from making a mistake and transgressing a Torah prohibition? Or is it for the general betterment of society? I have to make that distinction, because sometimes I have to make a choice. Do I do A or I do B, and I can only do one? I only have 5 minutes. Or at this time, I can only be in one place. I can do one thing. Should I do A or B? And I have to know, is A from the Torah? Is B from the Torah? Maybe A is rabbinic, and then I have to do B. And it would be wrong for me to insist on doing A while I'm ignoring B. So therefore, it's a very good question. How do we know, and what is exactly from the Torah? What is rabbinic? And rabbinic is divided into law and custom. What is a rabbinic law, and what is a custom? If it's just a custom, for example, cutting hair of a baby boy when he turns 3 years old, that's a nice custom. It's not a law. It's not a rabbinic requirement. And if a person says, you know what, I want to be a good Jew, and therefore I'm going to cut the hair of my child when he turns 3 years old because it's so important, and I'm going to do it on Shabbat. So then he is making a mistake. He thinks that cutting hair of a 3-year-old boy is more important than keeping Shabbat, when in fact, keeping Shabbat is from the Torah and cutting hair is just a custom. Not even custom of many people. Okay, we covered some things. We didn't cover everything. If I didn't get to your question, you can text me later, or you can stay afterwards. I want to thank you for being here, for asking these questions, for listening, for not walking out on me. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we should all be inspired to have clarity, to know what is good for us, to be able to control our character, and to ultimately fulfill our purpose in life. And looking back on our deathbed, we should really be happy and say, I accomplished whatever I could, I am happy with my life, and I go to the next world peacefully. Thank you for listening. All the best.